Hi, this is Canadian folk musician Jesse Ferguson, and today I'd like to bring you a short video on how to do basic fingerpicking on guitar. Now, this is not for people who are already advanced in fingerpicking. This is for absolute beginners. And in fact, I'm not an extremely accomplished fingerpicker myself. I mean, I'm self-trained. I have been playing for about 20 years, but I think the techniques I can show you will get you playing fingerpicking style by the end of the video possibly. So basically, no fancy terminology, no fancy techniques, just bare bones, how do I start playing fingerpicking on my guitar? So, what is fingerpicking? Well, of course, it means picking the notes with your fingers as opposed to using a pick. So when do you use a pick and when do you use fingerpicking? Well, it depends on your taste. You can take the same song, for instance, say so that was just G, D minor, A minor. Just making this up. So obviously the same chords, same tempo, you're just playing it in a different style. So I guess it's whatever your taste is. Now, when do I do fingerpicking? Well, usually I reserve it for more introspective songs, slower songs, ballads. So I do mostly traditional Celtic music and folk music. So I keep it for the slower ballads that are, about lovers and this and that. The more up-tempo drinking songs and things like that might sound a bit strange with fingerpicking. So I use anything rock and roll typically lends itself a bit more to vigorous strumming. But you can do it as you please. I mean, some musicians play nothing but fingerpicking all the time. Some do nothing but using guitar picks, so it certainly can be done either way. Now, do you need to grow your nails out long? Well, it seems like no matter what topic you bring up in terms of guitar playing, there'll always be some people out there who will say you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. I'm not one of those. I say do it whatever way works for you, whatever way you're comfortable with. You can certainly grow your nails out. Obviously, you can only grow them out on the hand that does the finger picking, because if you grow them out on the hand that does the noting of the chords, they're going to get in the way, dig into your fretboard and so on. So obviously, it looks a little strange for a man to have long fingernails, at least in Western society, and even more so perhaps if it's only on one hand. And even for a woman to have long nails just on one hand might seem a bit strange to those who don't know that that's for guitar playing. So you can use long fingernails for plucking the strings, but you don't need to. I get away without it, and I think some of the best guitar players out there who do fingerpicking don't grow their nails out long. I think that was more fashionable in the 60s and 70s. But I think Bert Jansch, who I think is one of the greatest guitar players ever, I don't think he grew his nails long, but you can correct me there if I'm wrong. Nick Drake is another guy I'm really a fan of, his fingerpicking guitar. But I'm not sure about his nail care. So you can also get special picks that are for your fingers. They almost, if you've seen Batman Returns when Catwoman puts those little thimbles on her fingers, they're basically like that. It's like a metal thimble that goes over each finger that you plan to use, and you use them to, but there's a piece that extends like a pick, right? So you use them to hook the strings when you're doing finger picking, and you would get one that goes on your thumb typically as well. I've experimented with the one for the thumb, and I don't find that I need it, so it's just another thing I don't have to bring to a gig or something like that. If I can get away without it, I'm sort of, minimalist when it comes to guitar equipment. I don't want a whole bunch of extra pedals or extra picks or whatever like that if I don't need them. But your mileage may vary. So, long story short, no, you don't need special picks or special long nails. So, let's talk about posture and hand position. Now, this is really important. I think your posture when you're playing fingerpicking is more important than it is for when you're strumming. Now, you may disagree with that, but that's my opinion. When you're strumming, you can strum up here, you can strum down there, you can strum out in front of you like Johnny Cash. You can get away with a lot. Fingerpicking, in my experience, doesn't work that way. you've got to choose proper posture, sit up straight, sit in a proper chair without arms on it. Now this chair I'm sitting in is not ideal, I'm just doing it for the video. Preferably a hard chair with no arms on it but a back. And sit up straight, bring the guitar up close to you. So if that means you have to prop your foot up on some kind of a box or something like that so you can get your knee up high enough. I typically wear a strap when I'm sitting down playing guitar, just so that it holds it up in a proper position. You want to have that neck a little bit up to your face and the body of the guitar, you know, above your hips, ideally. So if you're standing up with a strap, you might want to shorten your strap to bring it up a little higher, because you want to be able to see what you're doing with both hands. You want a nice comfortable posture so that you don't have to bend your wrist excessively. If your guitar is too low, it forces you to bend your wrist up like that, which makes it harder to work that hand. And also, you know, forces you to get in an awkward position here with your picking hand. So, comfortable posture. You know, if you've seen classical musicians play guitar, they hold it like this typically. And it might look a little strange, but try it yourself and you'll see how great that feels in terms of position. It keeps this perfectly straight, this arm. Feels great. But at any rate, you want nice comfortable posture for you. Again, it's, you know, suit your body in doing this stuff, but position is important here. You want to be able to see where it is. Where do you place your hand? Well, if you're doing strumming, you'll notice that most of the action is pivoting at the elbow. Whereas when you're finger picking, you don't want to have all that wacky motion. You're not strumming the strings like that. You want to have a more controlled motion, a smaller range of motion and greater control. So what does that mean? Well, however you do it, most of the time your forearm is going to be immobilized. It's going to be locked somewhere and not moving. You let your fingers do the walking. And the idea is that the span of the strings is only, what, 4 or 5 inches, something like that. Your hand can span that. There's no reason, as far as I can tell, for your hand to be moving all over the place. That only applies if you're strumming. Your hand, this picking hand, can move all over these strings without moving at all. So oftentimes what I do is I'll take the heel of my hand and I'll rest it up right against the bridge. Just lock it there, rest it comfortably. I'm not, you know, forcing down really hard on that. It's just held there comfortably. And it pivots on there a little bit. And then I'll do my picking. So you'll notice that it's not moving at all. The fingers move, but the hand doesn't, the wrist doesn't move much at all. Now you can also just let your arm float there. So in other words, the hand is not pinned down to the board at all. That may be less precise, but it also gives you a slightly better range of motion if you should happen to need it. So those are the two options I would recommend. So you shouldn't be moving your forearm at all when you do finger picking, unless you're using your thumb as a pick, which is not the same thing really. If you're using your thumb or the nail of your finger as a pick to say rake the strings, that's not the same thing really as anchoring and doing proper finger picking where you're taking individual notes out. So find what works for you, but those are the two ones I would recommend at least try. Anchor on the bridge, which is this piece of wood if you're not familiar, right there. Not so far forward that you're muting the strings. It's got to be behind the bridge pretty much. And then your hand can move around. Or let it float there, but basically it's in the same position whether it's anchored or floating. Okay, so what are the basic patterns for fingerpicking? Now, I'm only going to go over one that I consider the sort of mother of all other fingerpicking patterns. And you can consult other videos that are more technical later on. But the ones that I do, 90% of the songs that I do fingerpicking are all variations on this very basic pattern. Now, I only use my 4 out of my 5 fingers. I don't use the pinky at all. So some people may disagree with my form. It's certainly not a classical form. I've not been trained in fingerpicking or any kind of guitar. I'm self-taught. I don't use the pinky at all. So if you want the full 5-finger deal, then you should check out somebody else's video. This one is going to get you through most common songs in folk music, country music, even rock and roll ballads and things like that. And you could always, later on you could go into figuring out how to employ the fifth finger. But I've never had to in 20 years of playing, so it gives you an idea of how often I've needed it. So, the basic pattern follows the anatomy of your hand. You see that if you form a grip, that's the natural grip of your hand, which is the thumb goes down and the fingers point up. So if you're grabbing a doorknob or a hammer or something like that, that's the pattern you get. So basically the most basic kind of fingerpicking style is going to mimic that. You just transfer it to your guitar, and the thumb goes down, the fingers come up. So that's what always is going to happen. I never use the thumb except to pluck down. I never pluck up with the thumb. It's certainly possible, but I don't do it. And I don't think I ever pluck down with the other fingers. I certainly could, but that's not the way I do it. The thumb naturally wants to go down, it goes down. The other fingers naturally want to come up, they come up. So unlike with strumming with a pick, where you're going up and down, they each have their sort of dedicated directions. It's like George on Seinfeld. He can't go left, when he wants to go right. So they have, in other words, they have their predispositions and they want to go that direction all the time. And I let them do it. So the basic pattern I use is the thumb goes down on the bass note of the chord. Now if you're not familiar with that term, every chord has a bass note, which is sort of the lowest, bassiest note associated with that chord that you're supposed to pluck. Not every time you strum a chord on the guitar are you supposed to strum every single string. So you see, the low E should not be strummed if you're playing a C major. You're only supposed to start strumming on the A string. So A at third position is the bass note of the C major chord. For G major, it's third position on the low E string. For D major, it's on the D string open. So the basic pattern I use for fingerpicking, which can be used in lots of different songs, and is the basis for a lot of other patterns that are more complex, is bass note down with the thumb, and the other three fingers, which are the pointer, the middle, and the ring, the pinky is not involved, they walk down on the G, B, E string. So this is G major I'm playing, so I'm going to zoom in now just on my finger, on the fingering hand, to show you what that looks like. Oop, there we go. So try it with me if you've got your guitar. So you can speed it up. You can slow it down, obviously. If you get that basic fingerpicking pattern down, you'll be in great shape to pick up numerous other ones that are basically just variants on it. So remember, this is G major chord. So the pointer finger goes on the G string, the middle finger on the B string, and the ring finger on the high E. And then they go back. Now if you were involving your pinky, which I'm not, the pinky would probably do the high E. So there are other ways to do this. So let's try the C major now. C major, like that. So let's do that one. Same pattern, bass note down with the thumb. Now the D major. So the bass note is D open. Then back to G. So let's do a little progression from an imaginary song using G, C, D. So let's try that a little slower in case you're not catching it. Now you notice I messed up a little there. Sometimes it's hard to slow these patterns down a little bit, especially when you're used to playing them at one speed. To slow it right down can throw you off a little bit. So that's what that looks like. You notice the hand doesn't move very much when I'm doing this. That's the C major here. So a lot of songs can be played with that basic pattern, including Ave Maria if you play the G major to the G7, then to the C, A minor, D, D7. Oh. Anyway, so those are basic patterns that you can use. There are many songs that use variations on that. So even if you're doing something a bit more complicated, like say the song Because by the Beatles. You'll see that the basic position of the hand is not moving. The thumb is still always picking out the bass note. Occasionally, sometimes, one thing that I'll do is I'll do the bass note with the thumb and pluck one of the other strings in the lower part of the series at the same time. So this is C. This is a song I wrote in C walking down to A minor. So there in the walk back up to C, I do the G, but I'm plucking the bass note, and with my middle finger, the B. But as for the rest of the song, it basically follows that same pattern we were using. Now, to add embellishments on your chords, you can always certainly add, like, say for instance, if you're playing a D major, you can add add your pinky on the third position on the high E. All my bags are packed and I'm ready to go, etc., etc. So there are lots of variations on that. I have another video on my channel right now, tutorial on how to play the song Now Westland Wins by Robbie Burns. Really pretty little love song. And it's in Fingerpicking, so if you want to check that out, I'll post a link and you can follow along. Even if you're not a fan of Robbie Burns, you can just go to follow along with that strumming pattern, or the picking pattern. So it'd be a good supplement to this video. Now again, the sky's the limit in terms of how complicated you want to become with the fingerpicking style. But that one will put you in good shape to pick up a lot of the simpler folk style or country style songs for fingerpicking. So again, try to find something that works for you. Don't get hung up on whether somebody says, oh, it has to be this way or it has to be that way. You have to use picks, or you have to grow your fingers long, or you have to use the pinky. Just find something that works for you. You can have a lifetime of fun playing without following somebody else's school of music. So you might as well take that kind of advice with a grain of salt, including anything that I've said probably. So my name is Jesse Ferguson. Thanks for listening. I hope you find this useful. Feel free to ask me any questions you might have, and you can check out my website, www.jessefergusonmusic.com, if you want to find out more about me and where I play and things like that. So happy picking, and I'll catch you on the next one.